What's up guys, my name is Ace, and we've already got so much information when it comes to Modern Warfare 4, especially on the multiplayer side of things. I was actually very surprised to see how much they revealed multiplayer-wise this early on with marketing. And as I've been mentioning with my coverage so far, I was actually pleasantly surprised with a lot of what we're learning about this game. There were several areas where before the reveal, I had already kind of accepted that it's Infinity Ward, they're probably not going to change that thing that I don't like and that many people have provided feedback on, but then turns out they actually changed it. So I have been quite pleasantly surprised. I think just looking at the bullet points, things are looking more promising than I expected for this game. However, in today's video, it's time to cover the other side of things as well, because I don't think everything's looking perfect. I think there are also some questions that are up in the air, and some things that, at least based on our limited information, I'm at least somewhat skeptical about. And so today, I wanted to go over my current top concerns when it comes to Modern Warfare 4, specifically focusing on the multiplayer side of things. And to be clear, this is not intended to be like a hate video or anything. Generally speaking, I'm feeling quite optimistic and positive toward this. And it is refreshing to see a fair amount of hype in the community as well. It's not getting totally drowned out by negativity like we've been seeing with many of the previous Call of Duty games. But I also want to make sure I'm being totally upfront and honest with you guys and voicing concerns that I have, many of which are just due to lack of depth with information in certain areas. And therefore, there's a chance many of these concerns will be alleviated as we get more information and then as we get our hands on it in the beta. But time will tell on that. And without further ado, let's dive right into this with my number one concern for multiplayer with this game. And this is spawns. Spawn design is so important for the general gameplay experience. It's something that comes into play every single match you play that's not a non-respawn mode like Search and Destroy, but most of the modes in the game are respawn modes. Most of the modes I play are respawn modes. And therefore, bad spawn design can lead to the entire experience playing so much worse than it would be otherwise. You could nail it with so many elements of the game, but if the spawns suck, the gameplay flow is likely going to suck, and therefore that's going to take away from it quite a bit. And a big reason spawns is number one on my list specifically for this game is I have not been a fan of Infinity Ward spawn design in their past two games, where they've introduced what many in the community like to call the squad spawn system, where spawns tend to anchor very heavily toward teammates, meaning that the spawns often flow around the map constantly rather than being at least somewhat set on one side of the map or the other. And then obviously enemies putting pressure on your spawns can cause that to move, and spawns can flip if too much pressure is put on. That more traditional style of spawn system I find to be very important and very beneficial to the overall gameplay flow. It makes readability and combat flow so much better. Not just for the highly skilled players, but also for the new guys out there. It makes it easier to understand the general location that enemies are going to be coming from and which side of the map my team controls currently versus the side that their team controls. Having the spawns flowing all over all the time just creates a lot of unpredictable randomness. It makes it difficult to properly balance risk versus reward when it comes to your positioning. And it largely eliminates the flanking playstyle, or at least it severely limits the flanking playstyle in game. And this is an area where we're really just going to have to wait till the beta. We really need to just get our hands on it and see how it plays, how it feels. Obviously, there will also be some spawn tuning. There always is, always will be after a beta or during a beta. But at the moment, that is my number one concern because it is so deeply ingrained into the moment-to-moment and game-to-game gameplay experience. Now, hand in hand with that, we have map design. So far, we have seen some flyovers of 4 of the maps. And in case you missed it, I did a very deep breakdown of this in yesterday's video, and I was actually able to recreate some rough layouts based on those clips that we got, at least for 3 out of the 4 maps that we've seen so far. And so far, those maps seem like they're going to be fine. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be great and like instant classics or anything, but they seem to be at least half decent. Obviously, this is the type of thing where we just need to get some playtime with it, though. Overall, though, between the two, maps and spawns, I'm definitely more concerned about the spawn design. Next up, let's get these important big picture things out of the way first so we can get more into the nitty-gritty gameplay details we've learned about. But the next big concern I have is how they end up handling matchmaking and whether or not lobbies will disband. Now, they have confirmed that they are not reverting back to the pre-Black Ops 7 matchmaking. So the matchmaking we've been experiencing since Modern Warfare 2019 up until and through Black Ops 6. So that sounds good, but we don't know exactly what that means and where they're going to land when it comes to matchmaking. So time will have to tell with that. But also very importantly when it comes to that, disbanding lobbies. That is something that has made such a big difference in Black Ops 7. I really want to see it return. And we haven't heard anything yet. At least I haven't heard any official information yet when it comes to whether or not lobbies will disband. So now that we have those covered, let's get into more of the specific gameplay items. And one big thing is the visual recoil and excessive muzzle smoke similar to what we saw in Modern Warfare 2, Infinity Ward's most recent game. Based on a few little clips we've seen with monitors in the background, it does appear that there is a fair amount of muzzle smoke. And when it comes to content creators that have played the game, I've heard some mixed messaging here. Like, some of them were saying it was actually pretty bad. There was quite a bit of muzzle smoke. Others were saying it's there, but it's not so much concentrated on the center of your screen, so it doesn't necessarily obstruct the target that's right in the center of your screen. It's more around the edges of the screen. Either way, even if it is toward the edges of the screen, I don't like to see that excessive level of smoke. Depending on the lighting, it can feel like a strobing effect as that smoke is appearing, and I just really don't know the purpose of that level of smoke. Some people claim that it's realistic, but no, we're not firing black powder rifles. The amount of smoke we often saw in Modern Warfare 2, and I think the amount that we're seeing in the background with these clips, appears to be very heavily exaggerated. And this is just the type of thing where I see it as an easy win for them. Like, I don't think if they were to tone that back significantly that you'd have people that are suddenly not buying the game now because that was so important to them. Whereas on the flip side, having that exaggerated level of muzzle smoke is often a mark against them for some people and may at least be one of the factors that helps them decide that they don't want to get this game. So once again, we'll just have to wait to see more and how they handle this. At the very least, if there is a whole lot of muzzle smoke throughout the beta, I'm hoping that's the type of feedback they will genuinely listen to for launch and make an adjustment there. But we'll see how that goes. After that, one of the big innovations this year, or big changes that they're making, is the no bloom hipfire, or what they're referring to as no bloom hipfire. So unlike pretty much all previous Call of Duty games, outside of like the first two, when hip firing, you no longer have that cone of hip fire where your bullets will go somewhere randomly within that spread. Instead, your hip fire is going to be perfectly accurate to where your gun is pointed when in hip fire. And while I've gotten a bit more information on this and learned that your gun will be moving and swaying a little bit, so it's not like your gun is just perfectly stationary, so every single bullet you fire in hip fire is just going to go perfect to the center of your screen. It's not going to be quite like that. But it is also apparently way more accurate hip firing than it is in any previous Call of Duty game, or at least in any COD game from the past like 15 years. But this is a big change, and it's a big change to something that I haven't really seen any complaints about. I feel like the hip fire system in Call of Duty, people don't complain about the general system, at least from what I've seen. They might complain about like a specific gun and how they balance that, but not really the core system itself. And I just think making changes to those types of elements that you can describe as working totally fine, nobody really had an issue with, but suddenly you're overhauling them, I think that's always going to be a risk. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's never a risk worth taking. Things need to move forward, and there have been plenty of great innovations in the past where they have improved on a system that worked totally fine before, but now it's even better. All I'm saying here is I think this is a fairly big risk, and while it could turn out to be amazing and become a staple going forward, I think there's also a big chance that by the end of the year next year, we're going to be begging to just have our old classic hipfire system back because it just worked, and maybe there's some unforeseen issues that arise with this new style of hipfire. I would say at this stage, there's just a lot of questions up in the air surrounding this. I've got a lot of questions myself. I really want to see this in action and feel it in action as well. I want to see how it integrates with attachments and how it integrates between weapon categories as well. Like, is sniper hipfire going to be insanely accurate now as well versus SMGs versus LMGs? Like, hipfire is often a big balancing factor between weapon classes or individual weapons. So how is that going to be handled? We're going to have to wait to find out. I'm definitely going to go into this one with an open mind. I'm not feeling necessarily pessimistic about it, but at the end of the day, I still think changing a mechanic like this is going to be a risk. After that, another thing that I haven't liked the sound of so far, apparently, at least in the build that the content creators had a chance to play, it was kill streaks only. There were no score streaks. There wasn't a toggle like we had in Modern Warfare 2, for instance. And also, there was no specialist in that build, but apparently within their Q&A session, they at least teased without officially confirming that specialist would be coming back. And I really hope the specialist strike package does come back. But another big hope that I have is that we have access to score streaks without having to use perks or anything. I really like the idea of doing the toggle, and I will be disappointed if score streaks don't make it into the game, or if we have to use one of our valuable perk slots in order to gain access to score streaks. Next up, there's another new mechanic that I've heard described, and it's another situation where I keep it an open mind. I'm curious to see what it actually looks like and how disruptive it really is, but apparently, if a large explosion goes off next to you and it doesn't kill you, it can knock you off your feet. Now, I also heard from multiple content creators that experienced this, that it wasn't overly disruptive. You were still able to aim and shoot just fine. It wasn't like a massive stun effect. You could also get up fairly quickly after. But again, I think it's one of those situations where I need to really see it for myself. But my gut reaction to any sort of mechanic like this that forces your character to do something that you're not telling it to do, or potentially unnecessarily disrupts the gameplay flow in a way that it wasn't disrupted in the past. My gut reaction to that is I don't really like the sound of it. But again, keeping an open mind, we'll see how it goes. Now, as for another concern that I have voiced in the past, but since it's a concerns video, I'm going to be bringing it up again here. This is 6v6 map count. For launch, they've confirmed we're getting 12 6v6 maps, which isn't really a number that particularly excites me. Generally speaking, I'm pretty happy and content with like 14 plus multiplayer maps, like 6v6 maps at launch. So it does feel perhaps a little bit on the low side. And then on top of that, what about post-launch content? How many maps are we going to be getting per season? And what kind of separation are we going to be seeing? Because they did confirm that Ground War is coming back, as well as Gunfight. So what is that content split going to look like? I know, looking back to the past with games that had Ground War, sometimes it would be quite disappointing in a season to be like, yay, we're getting 4 new maps. Oh wait, one of those is Ground War, one of those is Gunfight. So for 6v6 players, you're getting 2 maps for an entire season, which falls well below the standards that Call of Duty has been setting in recent years. So we'll see how things go with that, but it is a concern of mine that the post-launch content support just isn't going to be that great, or it's going to be spread out across too many experiences and too many modes. And then on top of that, when it comes to post-launch support, I'm very curious to see if they're going to have the weekly challenge system that we've had in Black Ops 7, and Modern Warfare 3 did it as well. I feel this is amazing for player retention, keeps you engaged and interested to log in week after week to unlock something special that actually affects the gameplay. From what we've seen with the Apex attachments, it looks like there is a possibility there that could be integrated into a weekly challenge system. So high hopes for weekly challenges, but we don't know yet at this stage. So that is a concern of mine that perhaps we won't have that system anymore and it will feel like a step back compared to Black Ops 7 and Modern Warfare 3. Additionally, what is their post-launch support going to be looking like when it comes to responding to feedback and fixing bugs, for instance? And the thing that immediately comes to mind was the big minimap bug that we had back in Modern Warfare 2, where it took them months to get on top of that, and then when they did, it was actually only a partial fix, and elements of it persist to this day in Modern Warfare 2, unless something ended up changing post-launch and I've just missed it. Are we going to run into that again, where we're waiting months and months for a partial fix to a real gameplay issue that's actually noticeably impacting the gameplay experience? Or are they going to be able to get on top of things fairly quickly? Are they going to be responsive to feedback as well? Obviously, I'm not saying that they should change everything on the whim of the community, but oftentimes there are big things where it's pretty much unanimous. Everybody agrees that this thing is awful and needs adjustment, and yet doesn't ever get changed. Is that going to happen again? Or not? Will they listen? Will they at least maybe compromise a little bit and meet us halfway with certain bits of feedback? Obviously, when it comes to all of this stuff, talking about post-launch, unfortunately, we won't know until we actually get there and see how they respond to things and see what that post-launch content looks like. But it is a concern of mine, largely because of how Infinity Ward has handled these things with their past 2 titles. And there we have it. That's my list so far of the top concerns that I've got when it comes to Modern Warfare 4. Like I said, many of these are more so just questions that could be answered and it would alleviate the concerns that I've got. Or some of them might even be immediately alleviated the moment we see some like proper first-person gameplay with gunfights happening and everything like that as well. But I just wanted to make sure I was being upfront and clear about the things that I'm a little hesitant about at the very least. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. Focusing specifically on the multiplayer side of things, what are some of the concerns that you've had based on what you've seen so far, or based on the history of Infinity Ward games? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.